What's up guys, Matt here and welcome to this new video on my channel. I hope you're all doing very well today. If you are watching this video, I really appreciate it. I appreciate you guys taking the time out of what you guys may be doing today. I just really appreciate that. In today's video, I'm going to be showing you guys a fragrance that is one of my personal favorites. Personally, one of my favorite aromatic fragrances. It has a bit of an interesting story to it, and the fragrance that I'm talking about is the Dreamer by Versace. So my story with the Dreamer by Versace dates back to about 4 or 5 years ago. Probably even longer. This was when I was really getting into fragrances quite early. So yeah, it was probably about 6 years ago. I was roaming a store called Debenhams, which has unfortunately gone into liquidation now. It was an amazing store for selling fragrance. It was pretty much like, like a Macy's is in America, or, like a big department store kind of thing. I was in the store looking at all kinds of different fragrances that day. I just, it was like a day like any other. And I came across the Dreamer on the shelf, and I'd never seen it before, and I knew Versace were a decent house. I didn't know if they were expensive, or I didn't know if they were that inexpensive either, because I've noticed that this fragrance company has fragrances that are affordable and some fragrances that are relatively high priced. I mean, not too high priced, but high priced, if that makes sense. Blue Jeans from this company, which only costs £15 here in the UK. It's really cheap, and it's a great quality lavender citrus scent. And then you've got a fragrance like Eros, or Eros Flame, which is about £60 or £70 here in the UK now. So that's a fragrance that's a bit pricier. I mean, saying that, I have found a bottle of Eros for about under £40 on eBay. So it really depends on where you find them from. But this fragrance, the Dreamer, is also quite affordable. And I remember I was in the store, and at the time it was really expensive. Now it's affordable. So I remember just checking the bottle out, and I was like, wow, this is really interesting. So what we're going to do is we're going to look at the bottle right now. And as you guys can see, I have a few bottle designs. I have a few formulations that I am going to show you. But this is the bottle of today. Beautiful looking bottle. I mean, it's really stunning. You've got the gorgeous architecture with the glass, the Medusa head there, the gold here, the black on the top, and the silver on the top there. I mean, of course, people always get confused, because whenever I give this bottle to people to smell, they always try to take the cap off, and I'm like, no, just spray the top. It's a premier press, basically. So when you spray it, obviously the fragrance comes out. But unfortunately, this bottle that I've got is a bit dodgy. Whenever I spray it, the fragrance, instead of it coming out, it leaks down here, which is a real shame. So yeah, it's really nice. I mean, obviously the fragrance itself's awesome. The bottle design's really nice. Just unfortunately that it leaks. So yeah, if you guys have not heard of the Dreamer, it's an oriental scent. I mean, you could call it oriental, you could call it aromatic. I mean, the accords for this scent are, you've got aromatic, fresh, spicy, floral, tobacco, and sweet. So it's relatively quite a broad scent in terms of its, main accords. This was released in 1996. It was created by a perfumer called Jean-Pierre Bertois. I also know he created Gucci Rush for men, which came out in 2000, which is like a sandalwood scent or cedarwood scent. Really woody fragrance. I haven't smelled that one, but this is the only fragrance I have that he's created. And wow, this is an awesome fragrance. So like I said, if you haven't heard of it, it's an aromatic fragrance. The bottle design, as you guys can see here, is very different from the version of today. It's of course the same theme. You get the starry sky on the box and everything, which is really cool. I mean, I love it. But on the vintage here, you get this like nebula, which is even cooler. And like when you reflect it in a different light, it gives off different colors, and I just really like it. And we get Versace in gold, we get the Dreamer in red and silver there, and we get Eau de Toilette Natural Spray 100ml. Yeah, and the reason I know this is, of course, vintage is because they're made by different manufacturers, and the way of knowing that is The vintage version was created by a company called Giver Profumo, whereas the new formulation is made by Euro Italia. So yeah, and I've noticed another thing about this fragrance as well, which is really, really interesting. The new formulation is 79% in terms of its perfume oils, whereas the vintage is 83. So it has that extra oomph to it. Again, that's really the reason why I'm reviewing the Dreamer for you guys, the vintage version, because it is just better. And I also got a gift set as well, which I was really, really happy to get. I ordered this on eBay. In fact, I won it on eBay, which I was really, really happy with. I didn't expect to win it. I got it for really cheap as well. And this is another vintage as well. This is made by Giver Profumo again, and this is the other vintage. This is the one that comes in the box with the nebula on the front, and this was the one that comes in the gift set. So they both smell pretty identical. This version in the vintage box, the juice is really dark, and in the gift set one, it's dark as well, but it's a little bit lighter. So here we go, guys. I'm going to spray this fragrance, and let's give it a review. Another thing that I've noticed as well, which is really odd, is there's two databases for the Dreamer on Fragrantica. There's a one for the original version, which I'm guessing is this, and there's a one for just Versace the Dreamer. So if you go on Fragrantica, you'll find a database for Dreamer, the original version, and you'll find a one for the Dreamer, just by Versace. And if you look at both versions, they have different notes listed, even though the smells are pretty much identical. It's really, really weird. I don't understand that. If you guys don't believe me, go over to Fragrantica now and check it out. It's really, really strange. So whilst this is setting on my hand, I'm just going to read what it says on Fragrantica here. Basically, in the top, you've got clary sage, lavender, and mandarin orange. You have geranium, rose, and tobacco. And then in the base, you've got cedarwood, tonka bean, and you have fir in this fragrance as well. Most people said lavender. It's got a lot of votes. It's more than just a lavender scent, in my opinion. Of course, I get lavender. When you first spray this, you no doubt get that lavender smell. But the Dreamer moves away from that. The Dreamer has this tobacco, which creates this slight smokiness. It kind of reminds me, if anything, of an unlit cigarette. It has that softness of that cigarette tobacco kind of smoke. And I'm not talking about a cigarette when it's wrapped in the paper or anything. I'm talking about cigarette tobacco as if you just rip the paper of the cigarette and just let all the tobacco fall out. That's the type of smell I'm getting of just the tobacco leaves. That's what it's like. But it's an incredibly balanced fragrance in terms of the notes. There's a rose in this fragrance as well, which Fragrantica actually votes as being the fifth strongest note with only 493, whereas lavender has 1,296. So there's a big difference, but I do get rose very, very prominent in this fragrance. It isn't like your traditional old-fashioned rose where it can smell very feminine or anything like that. Like if you think of something like Yardley Rose or anything like that, this isn't like that. I'm not personally a big fan of that kind of rose. Nor is it the kind of rose that you would imagine in any niche fragrances nowadays, you know what I mean? It's nothing like that. Nothing like you would imagine in, say, like Lyric Man by Amouage, where it's just a beautiful, very natural rose. This isn't like that. This is like it's a tobacco dominant floral fragrance. So there's a rose there, but it's hidden very, very vaguely behind the tobacco, which creates this very unusual, handsome smell, you know? Very, very unusual. But I think the Dreamer is a very, very well-suited name for this fragrance because when you smell it, it is unique, and it does, it does make you question the smell a little bit more. You're like, wow, that is good. And you smell your hand all the time. It is one of those fragrances, but let me warn you, when you first spray this fragrance, it can be incredibly harsh. And I get that. I know why people think that. It's because I think mainly the mandarin orange is synthetic. And when you do spray it, that mandarin orange gives off this strange tartness, which doesn't necessarily mix well with the lavender, which I can understand. But that's what it is like to me. And if I had to analyze the harshness, that's what I would say. It's just because of that mandarin orange and the fact that it isn't quite as realistic as I would like it to be. It's just one of those things. And before I continue more with the smell, guys, I'm just going to go ahead and spray the new version on my other hand. That's if it doesn't leak. Yeah, as you guys can see, it's starting to leak now from around here, which is really annoying, but whatever. Okay. So with the new version, I'm getting a lot of orange, basically. Like, it's not a typical orange, but there's an orange there. It doesn't smell realistic again. Nor does it smell realistic in the original version, but smelling the original version, I know it's dried down on my skin, but it just has this really deep smell. Like, I can get a lot of notes from it. Yeah, it's just, it is a really, really nice smell. Like, with it still being in production, I would say that it is slightly dead now. It's more watered down. It doesn't last as long. I'm actually getting not a very nice smell, if in all honesty. I'm getting the same smell. I'm getting the Dreamer, of course, but it doesn't smell as doesn't smell as high quality, you know? It really doesn't smell as high quality. Then I go to that version, the vintage version, and I just get this really nostalgic, deep smell. It kind of reminds me of Dolce & Gabbana Pour Homme a little bit. The vintage version. I used to have a little vial of it, but it smashed on the floor. I was so devastated about it. And that's what this smells like a little bit. However, this has more of a rose and lavender smell. There is also tonka coming through really strong now. It's not too strong, but it's there, and it's nicely balanced actually with that tobacco. It really is. I'm not really getting much of that mandarin anymore. I think the mandarin only stays there for the first few seconds or even minute or something once you spray it on your skin, which I suppose is unfortunate. I mean, like I said, it's not the most realistic mandarin smell, but it's nice, you know? Okay, so this is starting to smell more like the Dreamer. I guess it was just that initial opening I didn't like. Maybe it was the harshness that I was talking about before, that basically everyone's talking about. Yeah, it's just, yeah. That, like, the vintage, again. Vintage is just great. And there's a reason, again, why I go vintage. Because they're just excellent fragrances. It's as simple as that. They really are excellent. And I do also have a shower gel as well, which is awesome. I've used this once or twice. And it's a shower gel and shampoo, I think. But it just says foaming gel for body and hair. It smells pretty much exactly like the spray. Like the eau de toilette. It's incredible. This is actually just developing more and more and more in my skin. Whereas this smells a little bit like plastic. It has like a strange... Yeah, it has a strange smell to it. Maybe it's just me, I don't know, maybe it's just my brain comparing them too much, but... Yeah, I think if I didn't have the vintage version and I only had the new version, I would probably love it exactly the same. I'm guessing that when I first smelled this in the store in Debenhams all those years ago, I'm guessing it was the vintage version. Or I'm guessing it was maybe this version here, because this is still made by Give a Profumo. Just different formulations, of course. They're all different formulations. But it's awesome still. It's still an incredible fragrance that I'm just really, really thankful for having. I've received these as gifts before, so like for birthday presents and whatnot. So got shower gel all over me. So, you know, I am incredibly grateful for every fragrance that I have in my collection. You know, whether or not they're cheap, pricey or whatnot. You know, I'm very, very gifted. And as you guys know, I love my vintage scents. And the Dreamer, for me, is personally up there as being one of my favorite vintage fragrances. And also, it was one of my favorite fragrances of all time. I mean, it is one of my favorite fragrances of all time and always will be. And it's incredible. I absolutely love it. So that has been my review for this fragrance. I hope you've enjoyed it. It's a really, really good fragrance. Really, really enjoy it. I would highly recommend you guys check this one out. This has been, of course, my review for The Dreamer by Versace. Take care of yourselves, guys. Again, I know these are difficult times that we're living in, but you've just got to do what you got to do, you know, and make sure you don't forget about your hobbies. Don't forget about your loved ones, though, more than anything, you know, because, like I said, we can't be alone. You know, loneliness leads to all sorts of crap, and you know, you guys are worth more than that. You guys deserve to live and be happy, even if the times are shit. You know, just stay happy, guys, and keep smelling good as well. That's the most important thing. Thank you so much, guys. Bye bye.